Welcome to an incomplete guide to personal growth. We invite you to take a breath and take a listen to our podcast that explores the wonder, humor, challenges, and sometimes those self-inflicted wounds on the journey of personal growth.
Our weekly podcast conversations include stories, resources, and tools that you can incorporate into your daily life. We're the mother-daughter duo of Sydney West
and Kelly Arundel.
Hi, Mom.
Hey, Sydney.
How are you?
I'm good.
So hopefully, I don't know how much it'll come over my voice.
I know. You've got stopped up I'm at the beginning of it.
I know. This is what happens with children when you start sending them to daycare.
Yes.
Plus, my part-time job now deals with little kids too. So I've got like double whammy. And so we took Charles, it's like his 2-year well checkup. Mm-hmm. And the doctor, we were like, yeah, he's on the mend, but he was pretty bad. He had a pretty good fever and
that was the longest he's ever been sick.
And probably worse than
a week
sick.
at least.
Yeah. And so we were talking. She's like, oh yeah. It's like, well, he just started day school, and she's like, yeah, some kids get sick every month. Mm-hmm. I'm like, quit it. That cannot
and then they
happen.
slobber on you, and you got to give them kisses, and everybody gets sick.
Everybody gets sick because that's just what happens with a little child. So yeah, it's all like congestion stuff, and at first sometimes depending on the time of year and how much wind is coming, it's like, well, is it allergies or is it sick?
Around here, a lot of allergies.
Yes,
for sure,
and so that's the thing. It's like, which one is it? But he was sick for a while, so I'm just praying. I'm hoping. I'm like, please, not every. I can handle every other, but like every month. No,
that's like a week out of the month. That's a lot.
And we're getting into prime sicky time too.
Yeah. Well, hopefully he's been around other kids before, and little Jim and such. So hopefully that won't be too bad.
But this is the time of year too where everybody
starts getting sick. And people.
Yep. Get your flu shots.
And,
I swear, but I know some people are like, oh, I still get sick anyway. But I feel like, at least it probably isn't as bad as it could be.
No, because I had the flu one year. This was when Dan and I first married, and I was living in Amarillo, and he was in Amarillo, and I was in Oklahoma
thinking of
City
a few years ago.
Working.
Sorry.
No.
Oh, really?
And I got so sick, I went to a doctor, and he wouldn't let me drive home.
Oh, you were that sick?
I was that out of it and sick and weak, and so I had to call a friend to come get me, and then they got my car later, and I was out for 2 weeks, and I was doing grad school and working.
Oh, no.
And it was just awful. And ever since then, I thought I never want to feel that bad again.
And then it hasn't. Like anytime that,
I haven't gotten that bad before
That's
again.
Awful.
So that was mine.
Well, we'll be hoping all of our listeners stay healthy.
Yes.
So this week we continue with our topic of seasons. Right. So we've done... what have we done? We did seasons of friendship last week, and then kind of seasons in our life as our. Yeah. Now this is seasons we're talking about of careers.
Yes.
And like that sort of stuff. So I feel like there are kind of two. I want to start with big picture. I feel like in your whole life it just goes through kind of a big season, and I kind of found some kind of outlines of this online. So like you start out your career, you're kind of in that springtime, you're like planting, you've got your seeds going and you're like learning, sprouting new things. And then summertime, you kind of get a little further into your career. You're called the performer. And you think about it, prime time of career is kind of getting into that 40s, late 40s into early 50s, Then you have your fall. It's called like you want to find your meaning in your career. And so, as you get into your mid to late 50s, you start mentoring. You want to have, leaving your mark. Okay. And then the winter time, the thoughtful, you have experience. You can kind of be that wise person people come to. So, as you get into your 60s, that's kind of how I
think so, but today it's really shifted.
It has shifted. That's true.
People are not wanting to pay those who are older because they cost more.
Yeah.
And so they're hiring younger people with less experience.
Yeah.
And with that, I'm not, but
stuff,
and so you're losing a mentorship.
Yeah.
You're losing and you're going, wait a minute. I worked my whole career and now they're saying, Well, we just don't need you because we don't want to pay you that much.
Yeah, that's true. So it is shifting.
So it's a shifting.
It is shifting.
So it's kind of interesting that when we talk about career cycles and how that.
Yeah, definitely.
But that isn't overarching.
Yeah, I think that's like kind of lifetime overarching. Then we've got, I think, kind of what we're going to hone in on is this general like career cycle.
Yeah.
So smaller type of cycle.
Smaller cycle, not the life. Yeah.
Yes. So I just want to kind of hit them and then we can kind of talk about each one. So winter, you hunkering down, you're researching. Let's say you're like, I want something new, but you don't, it's best not to just jump into it right away. You got to see, okay, what is my next step going to be? Okay. How am I going to start? So you do your research on like where you might want to fit yourself. Okay. You hunker down and and then spring, after that, you're planting your seeds. You're starting the network. You start getting your resume ready. You start dusting that off. Then summertime, you're getting outside, you're doing interviews, you're more hardcore, getting into whatever niche you're trying to find and getting yourself out there. And then fall, harvest time. So all that hard work you did, you're harvesting and you're getting in those offers, getting into a new role, whatever that is. Okay. So that's kind of like shorter life cycle of the seasons. So here's kind of what I want to hit on.
Okay.
So we have all these cycles. Let's talk about why have these seasons? Why have this cycle of your career?
Well, my guess is, and I think there's different types of careers and different types of personalities wanting different types of careers. Mm-hmm. Some will never want to do the management and do the movement.
That's true.
I'm happy doing what I'm doing. I'm just going to do this. It supplies my family's needs, supplies my needs. It allows me to do other stuff. Yeah. I'm here to make my dollars.
Yes.
And maybe, that's true. I don't want more.
Yeah.
Then there are those who have this goal of what they want to achieve and be down the road, and they do that, And I was thinking about, we talked with Jennifer.
Yes.
And she said she had started, when we were talking about the communication.
Yes.
She's been with this company for 20 years or so.
A long
19,
time.
Something like that.
Yeah.
And she started at the bottom.
Yeah, she did.
So she said. And so her career cycled and cycled and cycled because she knew she had something to offer. And she wanted it, and so she would seek those opportunities.
Yeah.
And I think it's the same. It takes the same self-reflection as all other personal growth.
Yeah.
What do I really want? Mm-hmm. And then maybe we jump into it and go,
oh,
I really don't care to manage all these people and deal with their gripes.
Yeah.
And have to do more responsibility. Is it worth the pay? I don't know.
Yeah.
And, there's this measuring of what you want to do.
Yeah.
And then even within that, people, and I don't know the tech world, but I hear they change jobs a lot.
Yeah.
But it's like, I've done this. I don't want to do teaching anymore. What can I do that I would enjoy? Mm-hmm. I don't want to, be in this retail or whatever it may be, right? And it's seeking what would fulfill me. But you mentioned earlier about you don't just jump ship.
That winter, that hunkering down. That
you hunker down, but you don't leave what you're doing until you know where you're going or have an idea. Have some jumping off point.
Yeah.
Right?
Definitely. And I think you can have, I feel like people hear, career cycles or, your seasons and stuff. And it's not necessarily that you have to jump, not like a whole new career. That's not necessarily what you have to do every single time. Like Jennifer, you can think, well, what sort of new role would I want
in this company?
So then you hunker down and you think, okay, how do I ask for this? Yeah. How do I define what I want? So you can go to your higher ups and you tell them, this is what I'm looking for.
And if you have a really good boss.
Yeah. They're asking those questions anyway.
I know. Paul constantly asks people. So you're here right now. Well, what's your goal? What do you want? What do you want next?
Yeah.
What do you want to? What's next?
And he wants to help that
and then
happen.
he'll foster. Well, these are some of the skills you're going to need.
Yes.
This is some of the training you might look into.
Yeah.
This will better you. And you work toward that.
Yeah.
If you have a good boss, then they'll help to you.
That.
You may have to go to them.
Yeah,
if they're not that aware, but
but generally, if you have a good manager, they'll help foster that for sure.
Yeah.
And then And I think too, it's like that wintertime that you kind of, like reflect and make sure that you're making the right move for yourself. So then that way, when you go to plant your seeds, you're doing it in the right place. And then whenever you harvest, it is what you want. I mean, and it's not like that it has to be right every time.
I know. I don't know how things have shifted so much. You know, my dad stayed with the same company for many years. He did change eventually, but he stayed with them and he moved with them and we moved a lot. I knew when I married Paul, we talked about it and he goes, "Are you open to moving?"
Yeah.
Did it my whole life. Yeah. Because he knew that,
he'd have to
where
change
we
company.
were located would not be the prime place for what he was doing at that time.
Yeah.
And so it was like, okay, are you open to moving?
Yeah.
Is that a thing you can do with your family? Depending upon where you are in the country or where you are in a state or a city, it may be that, well, if I want to stay here and being around family is important enough for me to do that, then what career am I going to do?
Yeah, that makes a difference
will
too.
I be limited? Just depending upon what it is. Now people work from home a lot easier,
and so,
but there's still those limitations if you want to stay where you're at or if you don't.
Yes. And I think God, and that it's so good to think about all those types of questions when you're thinking about changing careers, And I have this note that I was just looking at.
Yeah.
By having these different seasons in your careers, you can focus and align your talents with your current season. And I'm like now mulling on that thought. So, and I think that just means everybody has skills and can try and hone in your skills. Let's say you think you're not the best networker. Well, to move on or to have your career go in the direction that you want, everybody has to network and talk to people at some point. So how do you maybe, turn to a friend or a coworker that can help you with that skill? How do you try to focus and align your talents? And maybe you don't think you're the best networker, but, maybe you're somebody that feels like they can connect to people or you can kind of align your talents with that and try and focus your efforts at that time towards that. And then let's say, okay, I've done my networking. I've done what I need to do. Now let's focus and align my talents towards getting my resume really good for interviews, And then let's say, maybe you're more of an outgoing person, but you need to focus and work on hunkering down and doing your research and really listening to yourself instead of going outside. I don't know. I'm just like trying to think of, you may not feel like you're the best. Your talents aren't the best for whatever season of the cycle you're in, but that's always something that's part of the personal growth, I think, that we talk about.
Yeah. What do I want to do? And
how do I need to get there?
Yeah. And networking isn't always about finding the job.
That's true.
One of the things I remember we were looking at, Paul was looking one time, right? I don't remember. Somebody had suggested, just talk with them. Don't tell them you're looking for the job. Just say, do you know somebody in this industry I could talk to? Do you know who would be a good person to speak with? And you just talk to them.
Oh, yeah.
It's not about wanting the job. They may not have a job opening and you don't care about that.
Yeah.
Because you're networking, you're getting to know somebody in that field. And 25 years down there, or whenever, there may be... They remember you remember them.
And that can take the pressure off of it because it's like, well, you're not trying to impress for a job. You're just chatting.
Think of the people that you've spoken with since you started looking at changing your career.
Yeah, that's true.
And none of them were to get a job.
No.
Was it?
No.
It was
just to know.
I'm curious about this. Tell me more about before I jump in.
Yeah.
What are benefit? What is this? You're learning,
you're just learning.
It's not about getting a job.
Yeah.
At that moment.
Right? And then that could be something that happens later, but it doesn't happen,
That's not what it's about. So,
or maybe you find a good mentor in the process.
Exactly.
Definitely.
So I just think.
So have you mostly, like, whenever you've changed jobs or has it just been mostly because you've moved? Have you ever
No, I was ready.
Yeah.
Even when we were moving one time, it was like, no, I need to go anyway.
Oh, wow.
It's usually, I feel like I've run my course.
I feel like I'm
tired of that job. I needed something new. I needed to stretch. I wanted to live in a different place one time.
Can you talk about, because you went from in the same church doing youth ministry and then you moved on to adult
Yes.
How did that work?
Well, I had moved away and come back, but
okay.
I was doing, yeah. And I just knew it would not benefit the youth.
Yeah.
I was kind of done. I didn't have that kind of time and energy. I loved doing it, but there came a time when I wanted to shift my focus.
And I think that can be important in careers too. And like that can kind of get you to know, oh, maybe I need to move on to something. It's just like, am I benefiting the people around me? Am I putting the same effort in that I used to? Am I fulfilling my role to the fullest ability, important. And it's like, and if some of the answers are no, then it's like, okay, what's something else? It was another role I should maybe
Am I more
about.
drained than I used to be from this? And it's not just because I'm getting older, right?
Right.
What is it that's so draining? Mm-hmm. What is it? What am I longing for?
Oh, that's a good reflection. Yeah.
And
definitely.
I mean, I'm thinking of some of the people that we've interviewed have all been, talking to Lisa. She was doing something totally different in retail, and now she's running an improv.
Yeah.
And expanding it. And it's like, it wasn't something she planned necessarily.
Right.
It was a shift that was happening. And then, and I think that it's being aware that, am I feeling stuck? Mm-hmm. Am I feeling like I'm not growing? Yeah. Is this fitting my family's needs now? Because
that's
you have to look into that. I mean, you don't have to. But that is a question to look into.
Yeah, that's a question.
And there was a time, and I mean, when y'all were little, thankfully, Paul did not travel as much.
No, he didn't.
But then when y'all were older, he did, and we knew when he was taking on some of these jobs, this was going to be happening.
Yeah, he'd have trouble.
So that would affect my job.
Yeah.
And flexibility and what I needed and what he needed, and so, and you switch off like that if you've got a partner, if you can do that.
Mm-hmm. And that's, I think, a big thing too, is like your career seasons and cycles, like they have to kind of fit where you are in your life.
You try
as
to
well.
Make them.
I mean, you try as much as you can. I mean, I feel like there are definitely times where it's like, well, and my life would be easier if I could be at home more, or like if I could have a more chill schedule, because maybe you've had a kid, or maybe you're
taking care of parents.
Yeah,
there's all
being
kinds
a caretaker.
Of issues going
but
on.
Maybe you're at a point in your career where it's like, well, if you don't push and get it, and put in the time and work now, then it's gonna be detrimental later.
And there are prime times to do that.
Yes, exactly. And so it's like, how do you trying to kind of see how your career cycle fits in with where you are in your life cycle at the time. And sometimes they don't always coincide.
And I guess I'm more, and the question for your generation is, I think that they seek a little more balance in life than past generations, maybe, as far as focusing on getting that career. And it's funny because your career kind of goes along with your life cycle as far as starting out and finding your identity. Part of finding your identity and establishing yourself, kind of putting stakes in the ground, is part of your career of who you are, right?
And kind of aligns with that
what
time
if
of your
people
life.
ask, what do you do?
Oh yeah, we talked about that.
What do you so it kind of goes with that.
Yeah.
But I think your generation is like, wait a minute, I don't want to just work.
Yeah, it's like there are other parts to my life. Yeah.
And you're more aware of that, I think than past generations.
Yes. And I think because of like the times we lived in, it's easier to see how dispensable people really are to companies. I mean, going through multiple recessions and stuff, like you can kind of see, it's like, well, the company cares, but only to a certain extent.
Right.
And so if at some point they could literally drop me and just say I'm out of a job, like there has to be something else in my life. It can't be that,
right.
It's like you've got to have other things to sustain you.
Yeah. And I'm wondering, because I was watching an interview, and it was like this one young guy was like, I'm working all these jobs. I don't think I'll ever own a home.
Yeah.
So what do I want to do? Mm-hmm. If it's that's not my dream, what can be my dream?
Yeah. And so then we look to other things. Yeah, definitely. Because
I think of these places, there's a couple here in San Antonio where the board game places, people just go and there's board games.
Yeah, they just hang out. Mm-hmm.
That's a cool thing.
Yeah.
But, it's like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
You're finding...
And more hobbies and that sort of thing.
Yeah, and that's a networking thing too, though.
It is. Honestly, it really can be. Yeah, for sure.
So, I just look, there's what typical career cycle is not, and that's shifting, and that'll be interesting to see how that plays out.
Yeah, and
down
I think,
the road.
And too, maybe what kind of helps is like when it comes to family life, it's not just the man having to push through his work and push and get all that he can of his career and all that stuff, because there's more demand at the home, especially if you have 2 full-time earners, which is generally what happens now. Well, then your wife needs to be able to put effort into her career too, and can't just be at home and can't just be focused on that. And so, I mean, it kind of forces the man to pull away from his career and like see the balance that needs to be happening in life, you know,
if that can,
if it can, you know,
or you know, where if it's, you know, whatever kind of 2 men, 2 women, whoever's making that decision within, you know, who's going to be, where's the give and take, how do you do that, career wise.
And so I think it's just like people realizing it's like the company you're at is only going to give you so much. You know? And people used to find a lot more fulfillment out of it than they do now. So it is. And so, and then that affects, your career cycle and how you view it. And I think there's just a lot more company hopping and stuff too. Like people tend to not just stay with the same company their whole life, which affects it. So. And so I've definitely thought about this when it comes to, you know, because I'm switching away from music and going towards occupational therapy, and it's like trying to, like, initially hunkering down, being like, okay, well, what do I want to do, and what's going to fit in with my lifestyle and what I want to do, and be able, and part of it, I mean, it has to be what will financially help. I mean, that's a huge question. It's like people, and that's the sad thing too, is like, you can't just always find and be like, well, is my career fulfilling? That answer is no for a lot of people, but you kind of just have to stick with it because it pays the bills that you need, you know?
That's hard, and that's where you have to find that balance of, okay, if that's not my great joy, or I don't get as much from that, then
what is?
Where do I find that?
Yes. And we were talking about earlier, so I was like, I really haven't read any books about careers.
I used to. There used to be a lot of, and there still probably are, but I'm past that. But, you know, there was, What Color Is My Parachute?
Oh.
I think that was the name of it.
Oh my
And it was a career book. It was about finding what would you really, that was a big thing. People used to really search. I don't know if people fall into careers now. I don't know what that.
Yeah, I do remember like early on.
There was a lot of
even
career
like
searching.
Middle school and high school, they were like trying to help you pinpoint where your gifts were and like where especially it was a big thing at church, but even at school, it's like where your talents. And I think that kind of fell out of style because you don't really hear about it now. And it is something to consider, but at the same time with technology, everything now, it's like, well, you could be not a perfect fit, but, you know, with the help of your computer, you can figure out anything.
You can figure out what to do.
You can figure out pretty much how to do anything.
Yeah.
And I think there used to be a lot of that when it came to, like, deciding what major you were going to be. And that was kind of like the context that I saw it in. But I think it fell out of style. I really don't see many of those types of questionnaires
see much
and stuff
and I don't know if they do that as much in high. I don't know.
Yeah.
Because I think there's so much more fluidity.
Yes.
Within careers. And
I think one thing that's overlooked is transferable skills, you know, and like, how do you put those on your resume? Because I think about it, it's like, sure, I've been out for at least a year, really, from work, but all the stuff you learn out managing, you know, that's a transferable skill. And then if you think between, let's say somebody is in, I don't know, let's say somebody is changing rooms and sheets and cleaning in hotels, and then they want to do something else. Well, that's a job that you've got to keep inventory a lot. You have to keep track of what the heck room you're in. You have to, like, I feel like
there's things there that can you transfer could pull into other things
that could transfer into a different management position. You know, I feel like people need to get more creative sometimes with like what they're really capable of,
yeah.
and what they
I agree.
what they can do. Yeah. I think transferable skills.
More flexibility than we think.
I think so too, and I think, and it's so hard. And I think this is why networking and just talking to people in your field is so important, because just putting in a resume with AI scanning your resumes now, like, it's so hard. People can't put a name to a face. It's not personal. It's harder to really get through to the interview rounds.
Yeah. And it's amazing when we say even networking, that's intimidating to some.
Yeah.
But it's simply talking to your neighbor, to people that you meet. Yeah, I'm
That's
not looking
true.
for a job. You'd be surprised what.
Oh my gosh.
Oh my gosh, I know somebody in that. And
I know this person.
It's just,
yes.
Yeah. It's just really talking.
It is. Yeah.
That's what it comes down to.
Yeah.
It's communicating what you're doing, what you're looking for, just in casual terms.
Yes. Yeah. Definitely.
And people want to help.
More people want to help.
People want to help you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think, and we've kind of talked about that with other topics before. I think it'd be surprising how many people really are willing and want to help.
Yeah, I would help somebody. Okay, well, they will too.
If it's as simple as just passing on some contact information, absolutely.
Doesn't hurt.
Right? Yeah, for sure. And it's about what people do with it.
Yeah. Indeed.
Yes. And so, but yes, with the career books, well, we went way off on a tangent. But so we have no references or resources, because I really don't know of any. I would just go back to.
I looked some on. I read a little bit online, but
it's general. The only sort of like businessy books that I've ever read had to do with culture and how to build culture. Because I had to do that a lot with like music and doing orchestra stuff. So that's all I know about.
But that's a big deal. Companies are cultures.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. So we don't have any resources. But this was our take on, career cycles, that sort of cycle, how it can fit with your life cycle. If you have any experiences.
And your growth.
Yes, and your growth within it, and how you can, hopefully align that to your personal growth. Yeah. And so if you have any insights into your own career cycles, we'd love to hear it. And then next week, we have a very exciting episode. There's a book called Seasons of Sound, tying into our seasons. And we've got two people that are well-versed in sound baths, which was one of our experiences. And they'll kind of talk about their new book, and we'll get to ask them a lot of questions about how seasons and cycles tie into sound and tie into our inner being.
The importance of sound.
Yes. So that'll be a really awesome interview that'll come out next week.
So we look forward to next Tuesday when we take a breath and take a listen.
Thank you for listening to this week's episode of An Incomplete Guide to Personal Growth. There are many ways you can stay connected. Follow us on Instagram at An Incomplete Guide Podcast, where you can sign up for our email list and get posts that delve deeper into our weekly topics. Make sure to subscribe to our podcast page wherever you listen to your podcasts. We would really appreciate a rating and sharing us with your family and friends.
We're so glad you chose to spend your time with us, and hope there was a thought, a resource, or a laugh that you can take on your journey. We'll be here every Tuesday for you to take a breath and take a listen.